Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I never used to think twice about rest stops when I first got into trucking. Back then, they just felt like pit stops, a place to grab a few hours of sleep before getting back on the highway. They were usually well lit, bustling with other drivers, and covered by security cameras. Safe enough, right? That was before I learned otherwise. Before I found out the hard way that the open road has its own kind of predators, ones you don't see coming until it's too late. It happened during a long-haul job, one of those grueling week-long runs through multiple states. Nothing about it had stood out at first, just endless miles of asphalt, routine stops for fuel and greasy food, and nights spent alone in the sleeper cab. Typical trucking life. Until I stopped at a rest area in upstate New York. I'd parked in dozens of places like it before. A big open lot, rows of semis lined neatly along painted lines, a few passenger cars here and there. The main building was standard issue. Bathrooms, vending machines humming away, a couple of benches out front. A few people stood around the entrance, stretching their legs or chatting quietly on their phones. Everything about the scene looked normal, but something about the place felt wrong. At that point, I'd been on the road for close to a year. Trucking hadn't been the plan. I kind of fell into it after hopping between jobs, trying and failing to get ahead. I needed something steady. This gave me that. The pay was fair, the hours long but predictable, and I didn't mind the solitude. Still, you hear things out there. Every trucker has. Stories passed from one diner counter to another, about stolen cargo, people getting jacked in their sleep, even drivers who vanished without a trace. That's why I always carried a piece, at least back when the company still allowed it. A .38 revolver. Nothing fancy, but enough to let me sleep a little easier. Most nights it was just me, the hum of my rig, and the distant whoosh of passing traffic. But that night, something was different. I rolled in around 9:30 p.m., later than I liked, but I'd lost time in traffic near Scranton. I picked a decent spot to park, close enough to the main building for comfort, far enough to avoid the foot traffic near the entrance. After shutting down the engine, I fixed myself a quick meal on the hot plate. Just some instant noodles and a can of soda. Not exactly gourmet, but I wasn't in the mood to go inside. Something about that place had my gut on edge. That's when I saw them. 3 guys. They were hanging out near the restroom entrance, and right away I knew they weren't truckers. No reflective vests, no heavy boots, no slouched shoulders from hours behind the wheel. They looked young, hoodies, jeans, sneakers. One had a baseball cap pulled low over his face. They didn't seem to be doing much, just standing there, watching. I tried to ignore it. Maybe they were just loitering, waiting on a ride. But something felt off. My instincts told me to stay alert. Before turning in for the night, I decided to check the locks on my trailer. I usually did anyway. It was habit. But tonight, it felt urgent. As I walked the length of my truck, I kept glancing back at them. They hadn't moved, hadn't spoken to anyone, just stood there, like they were waiting. The locks were fine. The cargo, whatever it was, didn't matter, was secure. But as I climbed back into the cab and sealed the door behind me with a solid click, that sense of unease deepened. I sat there for a while, engine off, interior light dimmed, just listening. Nothing out of place. Still, my skin crawled. I must have nodded off at some point, but it wasn't a sound that woke me, and it wasn't a dream. It was a feeling, something primal, something instinctual, that something wasn't right. I stayed perfectly still, ears straining in the silence. The truck stop was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Just the occasional low rumble of another semi pulling in, headlights cutting across the lot before fading into stillness. For a moment, I let myself begin to relax. Maybe it had just been nerves. Maybe that weird feeling from earlier didn't mean anything. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Pacing around my truck. My heart kicked into overdrive. I sat up slowly, careful not to make any noise. My boots were still on the floor by my seat. I reached down for them, fingers trembling as I listened. The footsteps moved around, then stopped, right near the passenger side. I held my breath. Silence. Maybe it was just someone stretching their legs. Maybe another driver wandering through the lot. Or maybe it wasn't. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Still nothing. Finally, I let out a shaky breath and tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Just overtired. I laid back down, pulling the blanket over me. I shouldn't have. I don't know how much time passed before I jolted awake again. But this time, there was no mistaking it. The sound was sharp, clear, unmistakable. The metal latch on my trailer being lifted. My body flooded with adrenaline. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Just reached carefully toward the dash, my fingers fumbling along the controls. The moment my truck's lights blazed on, I heard it. Scrambling footsteps, people running, boots pounding the asphalt. I shot upright and looked out the driver's side window just in time to see 3 dark figures sprinting across the lot, heading straight for the tree line. One of them turned back just for a second, locking eyes with me before disappearing into the woods. I sat frozen, pulse thundering in my ears. Were they gone, or just regrouping? Either way, I couldn't risk staying put. I grabbed my keys and slid into the driver's seat, hand hovering over the ignition. Then I heard something else, voices too close, coming from behind the trailer. "He's right there. We should go now." And technology isn't always your safety net. I've driven through blizzards where my cell went completely dead, through endless desert stretches with nothing but sand and heat shimmer on the horizon, and up winding mountain passes where even the most expensive GPS spun aimlessly, recalculating itself into a frenzy. That's why I still keep a CB radio in the cab. Old school, sure, but dependable. When your smartphone turns into a useless brick, the CB's the only voice you've got. I reminded myself of that truth the night I was hauling lumber through a remote stretch of Nebraska, headed to a site in Oregon. Simple gig. Pick up, drive, drop off, repeat. It was just after 6 in the evening, and the sun was starting to melt behind me, painting the highway in a long stretch of golden orange. I had maybe 6 hours to go before I planned to pull off somewhere and sleep in the cab. I hadn't seen another soul on the road for over an hour. No headlights, no taillights, no towns, no signs. Just the humming tires, the soft rumble of the engine, and the infinite flatness of the Midwest stretching in all directions. Normally I liked these stretches. They cleared my head, gave me time to think without distractions. But that night, something was different. I couldn't put my finger on it, just that the quiet wasn't comforting. It was oppressive. A kind of silence that made your ears strain, like they were waiting for a sound that wasn't coming. I eased the rig onto the shoulder and killed the engine, stepping down to stretch and shake off the road stiffness. I grabbed a sandwich from the cooler, just a gas station ham and cheese I'd picked up earlier. My wife's always on me about my road diet. Tells me to eat green stuff, but out here, convenience wins. I leaned against the cab, unwrapping the sandwich, watching the horizon dim. The sky bled into purples and deep reds, the sun sliding down like it was giving up on the day. I pulled out my phone to shoot my wife a quick check-in text. No signal. Not a surprise. Out here, cell towers are a luxury. I typed the message anyway. All good. Still driving. Love you. And hit send. It'd go through eventually. Probably. Then it hit. I've been driving trucks for over a decade now, seen a lot out on the road, nasty wrecks, close calls, even brushed up against death more times than I care to count. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened that morning. It was just past 5 a.m., the sky still holding on to the last threads of night. I just climbed into my rig, coffee thermos in hand, ready to hit the road. I've always loved those early hours, right before sunrise. The roads are quiet, the air crisp. It gives you a chance to ease into the day before the madness starts. That morning I was hauling a load of construction supplies out of Indiana, heading south through Kentucky. The route was mostly highway, smooth driving for the most part, but the first stretch out of the yard was a narrow, two-lane road winding through fields and woods. Usually peaceful. Usually. But something felt off. About a mile in, I spotted another rig parked on the shoulder, hazard lights flashing bright in the early gloom. A man was standing near the back of the trailer, bent over slightly like he was looking for something on the ground. I didn't recognize the truck, and I sure didn't recognize the driver. Still, we truckers look out for each other, it's just how it is. I slowed down, eased to a stop a few yards ahead of him, then climbed down out of my cab. "Hey, everything all right, man?" I called, walking toward him. He barely looked up. The guy was in his mid-40s, stocky, with a dark jacket zipped all the way to his chin. The morning light made it hard to read his face, but there was something off. Blank, maybe. Hollow. "Yeah," he said after a beat, voice flat. "Think my trailer door popped open. Saw something fall out in the mirror." He waved vaguely down the road. "You see anything back there?" I glanced over my shoulder. "Didn't notice anything," I replied. "But I've got a flashlight, let me help you look." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small LED I always carry. The moment I turned my back and clicked on the light, I felt it. Something sharp pressing against my neck, followed instantly by a surge of electricity. My body locked up. I collapsed hard, pain spiking through every limb. I was conscious, fully aware, but couldn't move a damn muscle. He didn't waste a second. I felt him flip me onto my back, dragging me roughly toward his trailer. The rough asphalt scraped at me, but the pain from the taser still owned my body. I caught a good look at him in the glow of the flashlight I'd dropped. His face calm, eyes hard and emotionless. I tried to fight, to move, anything. But my limbs betrayed me. He hooked his arms under mine and hauled me into the back of his trailer. I managed a feeble swing as I started to regain control, but he moved fast, too fast. Without a word, he drove the taser into my ribs. Blinding pain bloomed in my side and my muscles spasmed again. I screamed, or tried to. The last thing I saw was the trailer doors slamming shut. Darkness swallowed me whole. When I came to, the first thing I noticed was the low hum of tires on pavement beneath me. My head throbbed. My muscles twitched and ached from the taser hits. The air in the trailer was thick, stale, metallic, suffocating. For a few seconds I just lay there, dazed. Then it all came crashing back. I'd been taken. Panic shot through me like wildfire. I reached instinctively for my pocket, my phone. I still had it. My phone. My hands were shaking like hell, but I managed to pull it from my pocket and dial. 911, what's your emergency? I kept my voice as low as I could, barely more than a whisper. I've been kidnapped, I said quickly. I'm in the back of a semi-truck, I don't know where he's taking me. The dispatcher didn't miss a beat. Her voice was calm, steady, a lifeline in the chaos. Okay, sir, stay on the line with me. Can you tell me where you were when this happened? I closed my eyes, trying to focus to block out the dark swaying trailer around me. Just outside of Lafayette, near the trucking yard off Route 52. Got it. And do you have any idea where you are now? I looked around, but it was pitch black, and the air was stale and thick. No, it's dark, I can't see anything, but the ride's smoother now, I think we're back on the highway. Okay, stay with me. Help is on the way. For the next 10 minutes, I stayed on the line with her, whispering any updates I could manage. She told me they were tracking the truck using my last known location, but without a GPS signal, they were working blind. Then I felt the truck slow down. The hum of the highway changed to a rough crunching noise beneath me. Gravel. "He's turning off," I whispered. "We're off the highway. He's stopping." Her voice tightened immediately. "Stay calm. Do not engage. Officers are closing in." But I knew in my gut I didn't have that kind of time. If he got me wherever he was planning to take me, that was it. I wasn't going to make it out. I ended the call and shoved the phone back into my pocket. The truck came to a full stop. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, approaching the trailer doors. The lock rattled. I sucked in a deep breath, heart hammering in my chest, and crouched low, bracing myself. I wasn't going to let him take me again. The doors creaked open and sunlight poured in, blinding me for a moment. I squinted through it, making out his silhouette as he stepped up into the trailer, eyes scanning. Now. I kicked, hard, aiming for his head. He barely twisted out of the way in time, stumbling backward. That was all I needed. I scrambled to my feet and lunged forward, pushing past him. My boots hit the gravel hard, shooting pain up my legs, but I didn't stop. I ran. Behind me, I heard him yelling, loud, angry, then the sound of footsteps pounding after me. I fumbled my phone out again, breath ragged as I pressed redial. "I'm running," I gasped. "He's chasing me. Tell them to hurry." The dispatcher's voice forcing you to slow to a crawl. But this wasn't that. It was denser, more suffocating, like smoke pouring from a fire. My headlights sliced into it but barely lit more than a few feet ahead. The beams just vanished into the gray, eaten hole. I kept both hands clenched on the wheel, foot hovering light over the pedal. In weather like that, one wrong move could send you into a ditch, or worse. My shoulders were knotted from tension, the muscles tight and aching. I didn't even realize how hard I was gripping the wheel until my fingers started to throb. Something about that night just felt wrong. Maybe it was the exhaustion creeping in around the edges, or maybe it was the oppressive silence that filled the cab, heavier than usual, like even the air was holding its breath. I was easing through a soft bend in the road when I saw her, a woman, right in the middle of the damn highway. I slammed on the brakes hard. My body flew forward, seatbelt locking across my chest like a vice. The trailer behind me groaned under the sudden stop, metal protesting. I fought the wheel to keep the rig steady, heart hammering against my ribs so loud it drowned out everything else. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there. My truck screeched to a halt just a few feet from her. I sat frozen, breath shallow, hands locked on the wheel. My knuckles had gone white. Through the windshield, I stared at her. She was barefoot, dressed in a thin white gown that barely stirred in the wind. Her hair hung wet and limp around her pale face. Too pale, unnaturally pale. "What the hell?" I muttered. I threw on the hazards, grabbed my flashlight and climbed down from the cab, the cold air smacking me like a slap to the face. My boots crunched on the asphalt as I stepped forward, my heart still pounding like a drum in my chest. "Hey," I called out, louder than I meant to. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. I took a few cautious steps closer, flashlight beam cutting through the fog, landing on her face. Her eyes were wide, glassy, distant, shocked maybe. But no, it wasn't that. It was worse. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me like I wasn't even there. A chill traced its way down my spine. "You need help?" I asked again, more gently this time. Still nothing. And then, without a word, she turned and walked into the fog. My breath caught. "Wait," I called out, breaking into a jog. My boots echoed hollow against the empty highway. But she moved fast, too fast. The mist closed around her like a curtain, swallowing her silhouette until all that remained was a vague smudge. Then, nothing. I stopped, heart thudding in my throat, and stared into the thick, gray void. Male. Calm, deep, and all wrong. "She's fine, man," the voice said. "But you won't be if you don't back the hell up." Every muscle in my body locked. I turned slowly, flashlight still in hand, just as a bright beam hit me square in the face. I squinted, raising my arm to shield my eyes, but before I could react, crack. A sharp blow landed hard against the side of my head. Pain exploded across my skull like a grenade going off in my brain. I staggered, clutching the cab to stay upright, vision swimming in waves. Through the blur, I saw him, a tall figure in a hooded jacket, broad-shouldered, stepping out of the fog like a shadow come to life. "Where are the keys?" he asked, voice closer now. I blinked, trying to stay upright, trying to think through the pounding in my head. I told her, I slurred. "They're in the ignition." He didn't wait. He shoved past me, yanked open the driver's side door. The woman slid quickly into the passenger seat, curling in on herself like she was trying to disappear. My fists curled involuntarily. My truck. My damn truck. I wanted to stop him, to pull him out of that seat and throw him into the pavement. But then I saw it. A gun. Just a glint of cold metal as he reached inside his jacket. Everything in me froze. I stepped back, hands up slightly, my breath catching in my throat. The engine turned over and roared to life. I could feel the vibration in my bones. He didn't even hesitate. 3 flashes erupted from the driver's side window, muzzle fire lighting the fog. I dropped in the road, the rhythm, and especially my own truck. But that night everything was off. My rig was in the shop for maintenance, and dispatch handed me the keys to a loaner, some old Peterbilt that didn't feel right the moment I climbed in. I left an hour early, wanting time to get used to it. From the start, nothing sat right. The steering had a stiffness that fought me on turns, and the damn thing pulled ever so slightly to the right, like it was trying to drift off the road. Even the headlights threw a weird beam, dimmer, narrower, maybe a bit yellowed from age. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to put a knot in my stomach, like I was driving in someone else's skin. By midnight, I was deep into the loneliest stretch of Highway 82. Just me, the stars, and the hum of tires on asphalt. Every so often, an empty bottle in the cab would roll and clink, a tiny reminder of how hollow everything felt in that truck. The air was dead still. No wind, no cars, not even a cricket's chirp when I rolled the window down. It felt like the world had exhaled and forgotten to breathe back in. I kept my focus on the dark ribbon of road ahead, only glancing at the GPS now and then to check my timing. That's why I almost didn't register what was lying in front of me until it was nearly too late. I blinked. Something sprawled across both lanes. Debris, I thought. Maybe a blown tire, chunks of rubber. I eased off the gas and squinted. No. My gut twisted. Not rubber, not debris. People. 2 of them. Side by side. Just lying there across the road like some goddamn horror movie. Shit! I slammed the brakes, but I knew I wouldn't stop in time. There was only one option. I cranked the wheel hard, aiming for the shoulder. The truck hit gravel and shuddered violently beneath me. The tires skidded and the whole cab jerked sideways. I gritted my teeth, fighting for control. Finally, I came to a full stop, the trailer groaning behind me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I looked up. They were still there, 30 feet ahead, just lying there. Except now they were sitting up. What the hell were they doing out here? I grabbed my flashlight and jumped down, boots crunching hard against the gravel shoulder. The light in my hand trembled a little as I jogged toward them. "Hey," I called, stopping a few yards short. "You okay? You hurt?" They didn't answer. They just moved, slowly, unnaturally, like they were waking from some deep drugged sleep. I narrowed my eyes, trying to make out their faces. They looked young, maybe early 20s, both male, thin, pale in the flashlight's glow. But something about their movements sent a chill down my spine. Too stiff, too rehearsed. I took a step closer, cautiously. "You need help?" I asked. "Here, I got you." I reached out a hand to the nearest one. The moment my fingers brushed his skin, he snapped forward like a trap springing shut. He yanked me down with a violent jerk. I hit the pavement hard, flat on my back, breath gone in a burst. My head spun. Before I could process anything, both of them were on their feet, standing over me. I couldn't see their faces clearly, just shadows, dark hollows where their eyes should have been. But I felt them watching me. Piercing, cold. I struggled to get up, muscles screaming, and then, crack. Something slammed into the back of my skull. There was a third one. I hadn't even seen him coming. He came out of the darkness like a phantom, a blur at the edge of my vision. A searing pain exploded at the back of my skull, sharp and immediate, like a lightning bolt behind my eyes. My vision fractured, swimming with bright bursts of color as I hit the ground hard. I tried to turn over to lift my arms in defense, but everything felt distant, heavy and slow, like I was underwater. Then I saw it. A glint of metal caught in the glow of my headlights. The third guy stood just feet away, a pistol clutched in his hand, the barrel catching the faint light like it was mocking me. I barely had time to think, to breathe, before he stepped forward and brought it down, hard, across my face. Crack. My nose exploded in pain, white-hot, blinding. It felt like someone had shoved fire through my skull. I gasped, breath catching, and my hands clawed helplessly at the pavement, trying to push myself away, to protect myself. Anything. But my body refused to cooperate. I was going to die. I tried to speak, to beg, to ask them why, but the words wouldn't come. My lips moved, but nothing made it out. My limbs felt disconnected, foreign. My vision tunneled. All I could hear was the sound of them rummaging through my pockets, methodical and careless. Then, click, the sound of the gun being cocked. And then, blackness. I woke up to blinding light, harsh and clinical, and the buzz of distant voices. For a brief, surreal moment, I thought I was dead, floating somewhere else. But then I felt the stiff pillow beneath my head, the strap securing me to a stretcher. A paramedic leaned into view, face drawn with concern. "Hey, easy. Just stay still. You're lucky to be alive." I tried to respond, but my throat felt like sandpaper. My mouth was thick with blood, metallic and bitter. I coughed, then managed a hoarse whisper. "What happened?" "You were found lying in the middle of the road." He said quietly. "They took it." I just stared at him. My mind stuttered, trying to make sense of it. "They took my truck." "We think it was planned," he added, more gently now. "Police think it's a hijacking method, new tactic. They block the road, make it look like an accident or someone in distress. Driver stops and then they move in." His words washed over me like static. I wasn't really listening anymore. My mind was stuck on one thing. The gun. They had it. They could have killed me. They should have. But they didn't. Why? The cops never found my truck. The working theory was that it had been stripped for parts and dumped somewhere deep in the backwoods of Arkansas. chopped up and scattered like a ghost that never existed. The company put me on mandatory leave while the investigation unfolded. A month off the road. Time to heal, they said. Time to decompress. But rest didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. Each night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted. I saw their silhouettes, heard the click of that gun, felt the cold pavement biting into my back. I'd relive it over and over, powerless every time. Even after I got back behind the wheel, the road didn't feel the same. I'd grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, flinch at shadows, constantly check my mirrors, scan the ditches, anticipate danger in every flicker of motion. The silence I once found comforting now felt oppressive, like something waiting to reach up and pull me under. I've been trucking for 15 years. I've seen plenty of weird stuff. People with blank stares walking barefoot down the shoulder, accidents that didn't make sense, figures standing by the side of the road only to vanish as I passed. But this was different. This was the kind of thing that scars you from the inside out, that shifts your axis, that makes you doubt every moment you thought was safe. And the worst part? I still don't know why they let me live. I've been a truck driver for almost 2 years now, and in that time I've seen my fair share of odd things on the road. Sketchy rest stops, weird people hanging around the edges of gas stations, and that creeping paranoia that creeps in during late-night drives. But nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to what happened that night. It rattled me so badly that I couldn't bring myself to sleep in my truck for 2 straight weeks. I paid out of pocket for motels instead, telling myself again and again that I'd never stop at that place again. And I haven't. It was midsummer, one of those brutal stretches where the air feels thick enough to chew. I was hauling a load from Texas to Kentucky. Long days, sweat-slicked hours, and an endless ribbon of asphalt stretching in front of me. By the time the sun dipped below the tree line, the heat hadn't let up, and I was running on pure fumes. I needed rest. Badly. Then I spotted it. A small unmarked rest stop just off the highway about 20 miles past the last major truck stop. It wasn't listed on any of my regular routing apps. No reviews, no ratings, just a faded sign and a gravel lot. But it looked quiet. Dead quiet. That in itself was strange. Even the smallest truck stops usually had a rig or two parked for the night, but this one? Not a single soul. At first, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. No roaring engines, no drunken idiots knocking on your cab window at 2 a.m., no guys blasting music out of Bluetooth speakers. Just me and some peace and quiet. I pulled in and parked near the far edge of the lot, as far from the highway as I could get. Then I went through my usual routine, doors locked, curtains drawn, did a quick walk around to double-check the trailer. Everything looked solid. The heat inside the cab was oppressive, the kind that makes your shirt stick to your back, but I didn't have the energy to crack a window. I just lay down and passed out almost instantly. I don't know how long I'd been out when something woke me, a loud bang, sharp and metallic, like steel hitting steel. I blinked awake, groggy and disoriented, my brain struggling to shift gears from sleep. At first, I thought it was just normal truck stop noise, someone slamming a trailer door, maybe a driver pulling in late and hooking up. But then the thought hit me. I was alone. No other trucks. No one else should have been there. I sat up, my heart picking up speed. Another bang. Closer this time, somewhere near the rear of my trailer. I reached for the flashlight I keep stashed by the driver's seat, my fingers fumbling slightly. I hesitated, trying to decide if I really wanted to go outside and check it out. But no, it was real. A soft, rhythmic drumming, like someone idly tapping their fingers against the metal siding of the truck. I held my breath. The tapping moved, shifting along the side of the trailer, getting closer. Then, silence. I inched the curtain open. Just a crack. enough to peek through without making it obvious. The parking lot was still deserted. My trailer sat in the same spot. No movement, no one around. I exhaled slowly, trying to calm the surge of adrenaline racing through me. Maybe it was an animal, or maybe the metal was contracting in the cool night air. That's what I told myself. I lay back down, heart still pounding, trying to force reason over instinct. But just as my head hit the pillow, a new sound clawed its way through the silence. Scrape. Like fingernails dragging slowly across sheet metal. I bolted upright, heart thundering in my chest, my pulse pounding so hard in my ears it drowned out everything else. This wasn't in my head. I knew it. Something or someone was out there. I snatched up my flashlight, crawled into the driver's seat, and peered out through the windshield. Still nothing. The lot lay empty, utterly still. Beyond it, the highway stretched out in either direction, dark and lifeless. But deep in my gut, I felt it. That electric charge in the air. That primal whisper telling me I wasn't alone. My fingers wrapped around the door handle, intent on checking the trailer. But the second I touched the metal, a wave of dread rolled through me. Not just unease, something worse, paralyzing. My hand froze on the handle as every instinct screamed at me to stop. Stay inside, lock the doors, hide. But it wasn't fear, not exactly. What I felt was driving in the rain. I'm not talking about the occasional drizzle or a quick thunderstorm. That stuff I can deal with. I mean the kind of rain that just doesn't stop. The kind that turns highways into sluggish rivers and soaks into your bones no matter how high you crank the heat in the cab. That kind of rain. It had been coming down for weeks. Relentless, endless sheets of water hammering the pavement, painting the world in dull, washed-out shades of gray. Everything felt heavy, miserable. That morning I was already in a foul mood. The truck yard was a swamp, mud up to my ankles, puddles deep enough to lose a boot in. My socks were soaked before I even climbed up into my rig. My back, which always ached when the weather turned, felt like someone had taken a crowbar to it overnight. As I hoisted myself into the cab, I spotted Michael, one of the other drivers, walking across the lot with someone I didn't recognize. It was still dark, the only light coming from those old orange sodium lamps that made everything look sepia-toned and half dead. I could barely see their faces, just the silhouettes. They had their arms around each other's shoulders, strolling like it was a Sunday afternoon and not a freezing wet morning in a pit of mud. "Hey, Michael," I shouted through the crack in my window, trying to inject a little humor into my mood. "You two going on a date in the rain?" No answer. Neither of them even looked at me. They just kept walking, slowly, like they didn't hear me, or didn't care. Their figures slipped between the parked trucks, swallowed by the mist and rain. I frowned. That wasn't like Michael. He was a quiet guy, yeah, but polite. Always said hi. Maybe he didn't hear me over the rain, I figured, or maybe he was in a bad mood like the rest of us. I shook it off, cranked the defrost, and started my pre-trip. The first disappearance happened a few days later. The rain hadn't let up for a second. I was on a long haul through Indiana when my boss, Greg, called. His voice was tight, impatient. "Where the hell is Michael?" I blinked. "What do you mean, isn't he on his route?" "His truck's out on Route 14, Greg said. Doors wide open, engine off. No sign of him." My stomach turned cold. "Wait, what do you mean no sign of him? Did you call his phone?" "Of course I did," he snapped in, "straight to voicemail. His wife says he never came home last night." For a second, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Michael wasn't the kind of guy to just vanish. Truckers are creatures of habit. If we're gonna quit, take off, hell, even if we're having a breakdown, we tell someone. That's how it works. Greg sighed, and I could hear something shift in his voice. The edge of frustration giving his shoes, rain dripping from his sleeves, and then he smiled. This eerie, hollow smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Nice to meet you," he said, like we were bumping into each other at a diner, not in a deserted truck lot at 5 in the morning. He raised his hand like he was going to throw his arm around my shoulders. That's when I saw it. A glint. Thin. Metallic. A needle, long and slender, pinched between his fingers. Instinct took over. I kicked out hard, caught him in the stomach, and sent him stumbling back. I dove into the cab, slamming the door shut and jamming the key into the ignition with trembling hands. My breath came in shallow gasps as I threw it into gear and peeled out of the lot, tires screaming over wet pavement. Then I felt it. A sting on my neck. Sharp, sudden, and unmistakable. My hand shot up and came away smeared with blood. He'd gotten me. I didn't stop. Didn't even slow down. I drove straight to the nearest police station, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles went bloodless. My whole body was shaking. When I burst through the doors, rambling, soaked, and bleeding, they didn't brush me off. Maybe it was the look in my eyes. Maybe it was the blood. Either way, they acted fast. Within minutes, they had officers combing the truck lot, and they found him. He was crouched beneath a parked semi, soaked through, still clutching that needle like it was an extension of his hand. When they pulled him out, he didn't resist. He just smiled. During questioning, it didn't take long for him to crack. "I took them," he said casually, like he was talking about picking up groceries. "I took them all." "Where are they?" one of the officers demanded. The man tilted his head, eyes bright with something unhinged. "In my basement. Want to see?" His voice was soft, cheerful, like he was inviting them in for coffee. Then, without warning, he slammed his fists on the metal table, the sudden noise making everyone jump. His grin warped into something manic. "When it rains," he whispered, "I get weird. I can't help it. When it rains, I remember." "Remember what?" the officer asked. The man's eyes unfocused. He let out a hollow, humorless laugh. "I was 10. My dad and I were driving in the rain. A truck in front of us was carrying steel rebars. One came loose, went through the windshield, right through my dad." His voice dropped to a rasp. "He died in the rain." He looked up slowly, and something broke across his face, some twisted mix of grief and glee. "So now, when it rains, I find trucks." They raided his house that night. What they found in the basement was something out of a nightmare. The walls were lined with steel rebars, welded and driven deep into the concrete. And there, embedded in them like grotesque sculptures, were the missing truckers. Their bodies posed frozen in their final moments. Michael was there, but he wasn't alive. The rain finally stopped. They locked him away for good, or so they said. But I never felt safe again. Because every time it rains, I see his face behind my eyes. Every time the first drops hit